right, everybody. Welcome to today's I Love Real Estate Student Success Story. Now, every week we always have a different student, and I've got to say, each time I find it absolutely fascinating to find out, well, who it is. Obviously, you've got to find out who it is. And then the other thing is, what have they done? And a little bit about who they are and how they've been involved with the community, how they came to the community, and also get a bit of an insight into their journey. It's always fascinating. It's always insightful. And today we have a very different story. Felicity has come in with a very different point of view. She has already been involved with property and been involved with a lot of education training, but she came in for a totally different reason. And we're looking forward to finding out a little bit more about her journey. Felicity, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
Good. Welcome to the interview, and thanks so much for taking the time out as well.
Sure.
Now, what I want to do is just get straight into it. Now, we've got a couple of questions here, and I want to just kind of find out a little bit more about your journey. It's always interesting to find out. And so can you give us a little bit of an idea? I mean, like I mentioned here, you've done 20 deals, 20 years in property prior to joining I Love Real Estate. Give us a bit of an insight. What were you doing before you joined?
Okay, well, like I said, I've been around a while, and I sort of split my journey into, I call them phase 1 and phase 2. So back in phase 1, which was, as I said, more than 20 years ago now, I was doing a lot of vendor finance stuff, amongst other things. I bought off the plan. I built my dream home as an owner builder. So I did a lot of different things. And one of the things with the vendor finance deals was you tend to end up with ongoing income because they're still paying you, because you're like the bank and they're paying the mortgage back to you. So I sort of had this situation going on where I had income coming in. Every now and then a deal would finish, as in they'd either go and refinance to a normal bank or they would sell the house and cash in. So I had this sort of income flow, and I think to some extent I got on the comfy couch a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Regulations changed and I couldn't really do things the same way anymore. So at that point, I decided I'd had enough anyway. So I did get on the comfy couch. I had 2 small kids. I had an online retail business and I was comfortable. I was a stay-at-home mum with my kids, which is what I always wanted and which is why I always did things like property. And that scenario continued for a lot of years. I won't admit how many. But to be fair, also fairly early on in that period as well, my marriage broke up. My mindset just went down the toilet. My confidence was zero. And so I call them my walking in the wilderness years. But, people say to me, oh, you came out the other end of that with basically nothing. Was it a waste of time? And I go, no, realistically, that phase 1 funded my life as a single mum with kids for 10 years to stay at home. So I don't see that first phase as a failure at all. And often people say you never lose your knowledge. You still have the knowledge. So that's sort of where I started out. And then one day I woke up and I was good old nearly 50. That happens to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Nearly 50. The last one of my vendor finance deals after over 18 years was paying out. I basically only had the dream house with the mortgage that was eating me alive. And I had no serviceability because I'd been staying at home. And I suddenly went, oh, shit. I'm about to turn 50 and I basically have nothing. Okay, this is not good. And that was a very big light bulb moment for me because it was like I woke up and just suddenly went, what on earth am I doing? And I recognized just how bad my mindset was, and it was toxic. And essentially that's what led me into phase 2, which is where I went, okay, I can't afford this house anymore. I'm going to sell it. I paid out all the debts and stuff. I was left with not a great deal of money, and I spent part of it on joining I Love Real Estate, the ultimate course. So, which was one of the best decisions I ever made.
We hear that a lot, actually. Yeah.
Yep.
Now, Felicity, can I just get you to move your microphone just up a little tad, just a fraction? Yep, that's it. Yep, perfect. Yep. Yeah, perfect. Might just give you a little bit better reception there. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so look, that's a that's an interesting kind of way to come into the community, isn't it? And it's like, yeah, you're in a bit of a situation, and you're wanting to kind of like turn things around, hey?
Well, I'd seen Dymphna speak a number of times over those years, and I'd always liked Dymphna, and it just never quite aligned to join her course whenever I was seeing her. But I always liked her energy and her philosophy about life and a whole lot of other stuff. And so when I hit that light bulb moment, I recognized what I needed to be around my tribe, or a community of like-minded people. That's what was missing for me. If I was starting with nothing, I was going to need to meet JV partners. And I looked around and thought, well, what's the best thing for me to do? And as I said, I immediately thought of Dymphna and ILRE Real Estate. So yeah, I took my money and I joined, and yeah, so I didn't come at it wanting the education so much, although I did obviously learn a lot, don't get me wrong. But for me, it was very much about finding that peer group and that community. So yeah.
So coming in it from a very educated point of view, from the real estate investing side of things, but it was like missing that key point, hey?
Yeah. Well, I knew that the thing that was holding me back was mindset, and one of the things that made this really clear to me is for all those years in between, I'd been basically telling myself I can't do anything with property because I've got no money and no serviceability. So I had this. The funny thing is, I hear people say to me, oh, I've heard them say that at the boot camp, and I don't believe you can do it. And so at least you can sort of understand that why in their heads they say you can't do it, But then it dawned on me, I'm telling myself this, and yet back in phase one, I'd done all those things. I'd bought properties with vendor finance. I'd bought properties with vendors leaving deposits. I'd done JVs with people providing deposits. I'd actually done all that stuff. So I had been doing properties with no money of my own involved. And yet here I was, however many years later, saying, oh, I can't do property because I've got no money. I mean, it's mind-boggling to me now that I could have been in such a toxic place that I honestly was thinking thoughts like that when I had personal experience that it can be done. Anyway, so yeah, a lot of my journey from then onwards has been around mindset. And it's funny because so many people, you hear them say, oh, real estate millionaire within and all that. It gets a bit woo-woo, and I just want to know the techniques. I want to know the skills. And I honestly now realize that it's here. It's what's in here. And unless you get that right, it doesn't matter how many skills or how much experience, it counts for nothing if your mindset is bad and is telling you can't do it. It's really crucial.
Absolutely. So how did things change for you? Like once you got into the community, what happened then?
Well, I think taking away the stress of trying to, because I'd got really stuck in the thought pattern of how am I going to pay the mortgage every month, and shut out a lot of other stuff. So the fact that I sold the house really helped open my mind back up again and to start listening to new things. And once I started running the coffee mornings in Melbourne, mainly because I just wanted to find more people to talk to about property. But that also helped me because, again, there were people I met there who helped me to realize how much more knowledge and experience I had, because I wasn't giving myself credit for any of that. And yet I really did have a lot in my head that was useful. It also led me to meet Steve Cook, who's event approached me after a few meetings to do a joint venture. So that was my first joint venture after coming to Ultimate. Which went brilliantly, and he's now my business partner. So that's definitely been an advantage that's come out of it. But again, I think it's just that inspiration factor, that community factor, all the stuff that was part of my journey to clean up my mindset and get back on track with what I wanted to do with property. So
yeah. You were challenged. Excuse me. You were challenged, weren't you, to write down some of the things you've done by someone? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that was at a coffee meeting, and the guy who asked was the first one to do it. Was actually worth millions, if not billions. And he said to me, "You so underplay and undervalue what you have or what you know." He says, "I want you to go home and write a list of every single property transaction you've done." And at the end of that list, I think I was up to about 26, 27. I'm now over 30, but it's like I looked at that list and it just, again, another light bulb moment. I suddenly realized just how much I'd been undervaluing myself. And because they weren't all the same deal, like 27 times. It was, you know, I said off the plan, renos, this, that. It's so many different things and so much learning. And, you know, and that was actually a real eye opener for me, because it made me realize I had a lot more value than I'd given myself credit for, which helped a lot. So, but yeah.
Good thing to do, hey? Good challenge. Good challenge. Yeah. Good. Now, look, there was something. I think you've actually covered that. That's all good. So I want you to kind of like, if you can share a little bit about how you view the ultimate program, because you've done a lot of training. You've come in and you've continued to do that as well. You're not someone who's just kind of jumped in and taken one thing. You're looking at multiple areas of interest, other areas to be able to learn, and you're a continual kind of student, in so many different realms. So can you share a little bit about, obviously, coming into the ultimate program, from where you're coming from? Obviously, from how does it I suppose I'm asking, how does it compare with others and so forth, but can you share us your point of view?
I mean, as you're quite right to point out, I've been around a long time. I've been to lots, particularly back in the day when they were common, lots of pitch fests where lots of people are presenting different programs. And the thing I love about Ultimate, and still think is its biggest strength, is it's a great entry point. Like, there are so many different aspects to it. It's like I call it a smorgasbord. You come in, you learn a little bit about this and a little bit about that, and theoretically, you could basically go out and do all those different strategies based on what you learn in boot camp. It's not like you don't learn the basics, because you do. But it's the way you get to experience it all in one hit. And it really helps, I think, a lot of people clarify what they want to do, because there's always that very common shiny object syndrome with people who are fairly new in the property space, in that they sort of go, oh, I'm thinking of doing this, but then I've heard renos are really good. And then my other mate said, oh, commercial property is really good. And the good thing about Ultimate is you come in and you learn enough about each of them to be able to make much better choices for yourself in terms of what suits your personality, what suits your financial position, your time position. And it just gives you that oversight of so many different opportunities, because realistically, all the opportunities work. They might not work everywhere all the time, but you need to pick the one that you're going to focus on, because if you don't, and I meet a lot of people like this, they just bounce around from shiny object to shiny object and never actually do anything. And so that's why I love Ultimate, because it gives you that clarity and that ability to say, right, this is what I'm going to do. And then all you have to do is go out and do it. So, so I think it's brilliant. Plus the ability to meet up with a whole bunch of other people, and that community and all that ongoing support, all the ongoing work. I mean, it's just, seriously, you could spend a year and I still don't think you'd get through all the videos, and goodness knows what else is on that site. So that depth of knowledge that's available to you is just brilliant.
And how does from obviously your training, how have you found like the integrity side of Dymphna and the training?
Well, again, that's having seen a lot of people come and go for a whole lot of reasons. That's one of the reasons I chose Dymphna and chose ILRE Real Estate when I made my comeback, was because I had seen her speak so many times, and I always got a really good sort of feeling of her integrity. She really, really knowledgeable. I mean, blows me away, the knowledge she's got. But that feeling of integrity was really strong. The fact that she really cares about her students and really wants them to succeed. She's not just there for a money grab, because if she was, she'd have been and gone long ago, for starters. But also the people around Dymphna. It's not just her. You can see the quality of people she attracts into ILRE Real Estate, and they all come from a very similar place in their heart. And whereas other people I've seen, I've gone along, and there's always just that bit of a not so sure about them. And there's only a few that have really earned gold star standard in my there's plenty that have been good and knowledgeable, but there's not a lot that I really think have that top gold star performance level, and Dymphna's definitely one of them. So
Well, good to hear. Good to hear. And yeah, I think a number of other students find that as well, which
Yeah.
is which is awesome. Yeah, cool. Um, Now, Felicity, can you share a couple of deals that you've done? Obviously, you're quite experienced with, and you've done a whole stack of deals and investing. But can you share a little bit? I think you've got a couple that you're happy to share.
Yeah, well, one that I was still haven't found the slides for it. Was the first one I did with Steve. That was basically subdividing off the backyard with plans and selling it with plans and permits and renovating the front house. That was the deal we did as a JV. Originally, Steve had sort of got to the point where he'd done a lot of the learning in Ultimate, but it was just that moment of pushing the big red button. He just couldn't do it. He just, every time he went to do it on a deal he thought he'd found, he'd panic and worry that he hadn't done enough research, or he was just going around in a loop essentially. So he just made the decision that it would make more sense to give away part of his profit and JV with me, because then I would kick his bum and say push the button, which I did. But as part of that, I sourced the deal, negotiated the price down, and all that sort of stuff. That was early in 2017. So we then went into town planning, and it was sort of all chugging along quite nicely. And then the Vic government brought out all their garden space requirements, which totally changed what everybody was doing in development design. And so we had quite a hefty delay there because everything had to be redone. But it was okay because the property rent was basically covering the mortgage. So, but then once we came out the other end of that, we sort of, continued on, we did get the permits and everything from council. And then as part of all that, the deal had always been that Steve wanted to do the renovation on the front house himself. And as in the feasibilities, we'd worked out, we were essentially just going to do a fairly minor cosmetic renovation. But the market had changed and what people wanted had changed and the prices had gone up. So we decided, Steve decided or suggested he wanted to do a full structural renovation rather than just cosmetic. And he wanted to do it himself to learn. So we sort of had spent some time looking at floor plans, working out, because the house itself had a really awkward floor plan. So although it was technically 4 bedrooms, it was really yuck. So we moved some things around, shifted some rooms, changed some rooms, added a proper ensuite, did a few other bits and pieces and let him go. So took a lot longer. I mean, let's be real here. Steve will admit it himself. Doing the work yourself is hard yakka and it takes time. So we'd sort of had our original feasibility. Then I had the revised feasibility, which was much more profitable. And by the end of it, the deal paid us basically what the original feasibility said. And most of the loss in profit was time, holding costs and time. But then we often joke that was like his apprenticeship. So the money we lost in profit basically paid for him to be trained to do what he does. Now we've moved on to a business where we're doing that sort of stuff for other people, and it's really paying off because that hands-on experience and understanding of, okay, this is something I might do myself, but this is something I won't because it's quicker and easier to get a specialist. All that sort of stuff you only get from running a job. So that was really good and did an awesome job. We actually had our first open on the renoed house on grand final day. So it must have been before COVID, 2018 it must have been. No, 2019, yes. And I mean, grand final day is about the worst day in the year to do anything with property. But in
Melbourne, that is, for those people who are watching outside of Melbourne, grand final day.
Probably the same for rugby in New South Wales. But we had something like 30 odd people or couples through the house at the open in the morning, and we had 4 offers by the afternoon.
Wow.
On the grand final day, and they were above asking price. So we had a brilliant result. The land took a little longer to sell because it tends to. But we were really happy with the result. And also out of that, we've now getting referrals from the estate agents because they know what we do in terms of managing renovations for people. So they actually are referring clients to us because we did such an awesome job. So
Yeah, good, good.
Yeah.
And did you guys end up with a little bit of? I mean, it seemed like you're doing this less for the profit, but more. Well, certainly from Steve's point of view, less for the profit, more from the education side of things and getting into it, which is a
Yeah.
great way to do your first deal. If you're kind of like, you're looking at it from the value of education, like you say, is and experience. That really is something that you can't get really anywhere else, can you?
No, and I mean we still made nearly 100,000. It's not like we didn't make money on the deal, but
Yeah.
as I said, if we'd done that structural reno a lot quicker and whatever, potentially, yeah, the fees was better. But that's okay. It still didn't lose us money, so not complaining.
The profit's a profit, hey?
Yeah, that's right.
Good, good. Now, I wanted to just kind of highlight because when you first came into the community, you were kind of like obviously not confident in doing certain deals, and also did you like have a limitation about what you could do? Like, and the reason being is because you've got another deal that highlights a very different shift in your point of view, and that is going from how do you go from just a deal which is such as a reno in a subdivision, and what are you talking about figures wise for that reno subdivision that you did? I mean, like what do you have a rough idea of the amounts if you're getting around about the 100K profit from it?
Yeah.
What
we bought in it was just over 600. I think it was 610K at the time.
Yep.
If you're going to ask me for final numbers, I wish I'd found the slides.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of deal that you were doing.
Yeah.
As the first one. Yeah. Did you have kind of? I mean, you know what I'm going to ask, and that is you got another deal coming up, and it's quite a step. How did you get to that step, and what was the process for you to kind of like jump in?
Yeah.
And obviously it's a bigger deal if you want to share.
Yep. Well, again, having come in with lack of confidence, lack of value, not valuing myself and all this sort of stuff, I've had a lot of people over the last couple of years telling me to think bigger. And certainly part of my journey outside of I Love Real Estate has been a lot of mindset stuff. I had a lot of blocks around money. I had a lot of blocks around confidence, a whole lot of stuff I needed to work around and get through, which I've been doing on the side. So yeah, it just people telling me thinking bigger. And again, it's another light bulb moment. I had a brains trust person who was saying to me, realistically, bigger deals, it's all the same stuff. You go into property and it's about solving problems. Yeah, okay, you might want some specific knowledge about specific problems you'll encounter in a reno versus a development, for example, but it's still being creative and having that ability to solve problems and move forward. So, and he actually was saying to me, a bigger deal is just different, bigger problems. It's not the thought process is identical to a small deal. So, anyway, I finally sort of, that light bulb went off a bit in me, and I got a little over enthusiastic. And considering at the moment I didn't have any available money because things are tied up elsewhere. And then this deal for a 6,000 square meter block worth, it was a little more than 5.4 million, but my offer was 5.4 million came across my desk. And I thought, oh, this looks fun. I'll go take a look at this. And when I started doing some of the FISOs on a round about 14 to 16 townhouse development, it all stacked up. And I'm going, okay, so this is, 5.4 million. I don't have any money to do this right at this moment in time. But I put the offer in, and I had to put a 10,000 payment in with the offer, which I borrowed from my son. So, and I've now got an investor in place who's paying the deposit on the deal. I've got a long settlement. I don't have to settle for 18 months. So yeah, the investor's basically paying the deposit and the cost of the development approval. And the idea is that, I'll roll straight into construction funding once the settlement period ends. So
that's a huge step. Do you have an idea of what the kind of like the largest deal you were doing prior to that?
Well, as I said, I've been managing other people's deals for a little while, but the one with Steve was I said 600K buy-in. But yeah, deals similar size to that. I mean, the price point's gone up a little bit over the years, but essentially that 1 into 2 type level was probably about the biggest deal I'd done prior.
And now you're just blown that out of the water with 5.4 mil, and you didn't use any of your money.
No. So yeah, that's a bit crazy. But you know, it's all comes down to the numbers. And I mean, anyone who's been to one of my coffee mornings will know that my favorite mantra is you must do the numbers, do the numbers, do the numbers. It all comes down to numbers. I say it over and over and over. And you know, tend to go, ooh, spreadsheets. I love spreadsheets. And people look at me like I'm weird. But it's true. And that's one of the things you get out of Ultimate is Dymphna talks a lot about the numbers in terms of, you know, how do you do a feasibility? How do you do grid variance? All this stuff that goes, you don't just see a block and think, oh, this looks fun, I'll do this. You know, you've got to have all those things in place. You've got to do that due diligence to know a deal is feasible. Because otherwise you just if you just buy a house and think, okay, I'll just knock it down and build two and the numbers don't work, well, you're in trouble. So yeah, I know I talk about that a lot at coffee meetings. Doing
and I want to expand on that too, because you've been doing those coffee meetings like for years now, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
And you even did them via Zoom.
Yep.
So yeah, brilliant to hear. Let's expand on it a little bit later. So with this deal now, right? So you've got into it. It's come across your desk, and you've gone, okay, let's get into it. No money down. Hey, let's solve this problem. Who's got 10 grand? You come in. You found that now you've got another business partner to come in to finance it as well.
Yep.
Well, huge well done. Now, what options have you got? Because you've got a couple of different options with that place too, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, originally when I looked at it, I was looking at townhouses, and I'd heard from the agent that somebody else had done a pre-app meeting with council on it and had tried to go in with 19, and council had said 14. So I did all my FISO on 14, although the actual plan we're putting to council is 16, because, you know, always got to push it. And councils like to feel like they won a little battle. So if they talk it back to 14, hey, I'm happy. So that was my original plan, and then I was talking to, again, somebody else checking it over to just see what they thought. And he was saying to me, well, have you thought about a land subdivision? So I'm like, oh, no, because in Melbourne, you don't tend to think of land subdivisions because most councils don't like them very much, and they tend to want you to have all your plans and everything all drawn up just to do a land subdivision. So I went off and crunched some numbers with that. And funnily enough, doing like 14 or 16 townhouse sites was less profitable than doing 10 larger sites, because the larger sites around 500 square meters are more considered house blocks rather than townhouse blocks. And in this area, that's what people want. I mean, at the moment, people around me are knocking houses down just to build a McMansion. I mean, and they're paying very good money to buy old houses to knock down. And there's one disappearing every 2 weeks within walking distance of where I live, because I'm in a similar area to where this deal is. So I looked at it and said, all right, well, I'm actually better off doing 10 lots. And then just to throw me a curveball, the same person also said, have you thought about aged care facility? I'm like, no, I haven't thought about an aged care facility. Now, I'm not game enough to try and I don't think I think an aged care group is better off developing their own facility because they know exactly what they want. But yeah, I've had conversations with a couple of different aged care providers who are interested in me flipping the deal to them as a raw site, and they'll go off and do all their own development stuff. And one of them was so close, but they already had a facility not very far away that's getting quite old, and they were a little worried about creating their own competition. So, you know, but that's okay. It's 2 more still in talks. But if that comes through, then that flips within under 6 months. It makes about $1.5 million profit, roughly. So
roughly,
nice.
roughly
I can handle that.
one and a half mil profit in 6 months, and you put how much money in?
None.
That's amazing. That's amazing, hey. Yeah. So the thing I love about what you're doing here is that because you've got a great insight into feasibility and the numbers, you're just crunching the numbers for each specific strategy, and it's just given you all of these choices.
Well, yeah, and because the land one's my next favourite, because if I do get the 10 lots I'm asking for, it'll be it's over 40% ROI and about 2.5 million profit. So,
wow. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Another mill. Oh,
what's a meal between friends?
But it takes a little bit longer, hey?
Yeah, it does. So there's more
Yeah.
time and effort and, all that sort of stuff involved. So, yeah. And then the 14 townhouses is around about 18% and 2 mil. So,
wow. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah. Now this is, look, I got to say, this is it's so nice to hear that you've come into the community. You're feeling like, oh, gee, not the confidence, and you've got to think big. And here you are, you're doing exactly what you've kind of been wanting to achieve. So yeah, awesome. So cool to hear. And you've got something else kind of in the pipeline, haven't you?
Yeah, well, I've been working on 1 into 4s as well, so which I'm negotiating. I've actually had a text message turn up while I've been talking to you, because I'm going in to sign off an offer on that this afternoon. So that one's got a tricky tree though, so we'll see.
Yeah, wow.
Awesome. The main argument has been how long a due diligence period will they allow me? Because I said I'm not buying it without a due diligence clause.
Yeah.
The tree is tricky.
Yeah, indeed. Now, look, one of the things I want to kind of ask you here is you've kind of gone through and you've done, obviously, you've pretty much shifted a whole lot of your approach. You've taken everything to another level, which is awesome. Doing a deal with no money down, 5.4 mil in, and you've got multiple choices ranging from 1.5 mil up to 2.5 mil profit. Amazing, just amazing. But I want to have a look at kind of like what happens if you run into a problem and you kind of feel like, I just don't know how to solve that. Does that happen for you? Like, I mean, you're quite experienced, but
it's happened quite a few times already just on that deal.
Well, okay. So what happens? What do you do in that situation?
I then look around at the people I know in the community and my brains trust and say, okay, who's the person who's either done something like this before, or has done something similar before, or might have experience, and I reach out to them and ask the questions. So yeah, I really rely heavily on community if I don't have the answer myself or can't work it out myself. And there's just so many great people I've met, again, through coffee meetings and at going to boot camps and whatever's. And they're just such a range of different people, it's and somebody somewhere will have done what it is that I'm trying to do. And I just have to work out who that person is and go ask them. And I'm constantly blown away by the generosity of people in sharing their knowledge and time and experience with me. I like to think that I pay that back in my own small way with stuff I do, particularly with the coffee mornings. But yeah, that willingness of the community to just share. It's not something you come across a lot outside of places like I Love Real Estate, particularly when it comes to talking money and anything like that. And a lot of people, if they know you're doing property stuff, they think you're, a greedy fat cat. And I mean, it can be very negative outside of the community sometimes with the sort of things I'm doing. So I rely heavily on the people I've met and know. And that's, again, been one of the biggest things for me with doing Ultimate is that access and that ability to now know all those people, which I wouldn't have had without it. So I'm very blessed.
It's this absolute magic about the I Love Real Estate community. It has an absolute, it's a life of its own. It has its own energy, and it's continually amazes me. So I'm really glad you kind of, you brought that up. I mean, Dymphna describes it as as having mates in the market.
Yeah.
Could you like elaborate a little bit more on because you've been doing these coffee mornings for years now. Can you kind of share a little bit about, I mean, we kind of like, I think you've explained a little bit about why you did them, but a little bit more about why, if somebody else wants to do one, what would they do to go about it? Because this is something that you've been doing for years. You've got a reputation about doing it in Melbourne, which is awesome. And I know that there's others around Australia, but if anyone else is kind of looking at it, how did you go about it, and how do you think it works well to have these meetups?
Okay, well, you can sort of do different types of meetups. There's plenty that have come out of specific boot camps, I know. But I find the reason or I think the coffee mornings work well is that people can come and go at any level at any time. It's fairly laid back. We don't have specific agendas. I know there are other groups that run on a much more, structured way, and that suits them. But I like the fact that anyone can come along and talk about anything, and either I can help them or someone else can help them. They often find other JV partners. So yeah, it's sort of a case of, I think if you want to do something like that, just start. Just put up a time and a place and whatever, and just start. Because essentially, because one thing I learned right from when I first asked people about, hey, I'm thinking of doing this, you'll never find the right day, you'll never find the right time, and you'll never find the right place for everybody. So just set something up and take action. Because yeah, that's what I did. I just said, okay, well, I'll have a Friday and a Sunday because that covers people who want weekdays and weekends. And I just went for it. And it ebbs and flows. We have meetings where we have stacks of people, and we have meetings where I'm sitting there by myself. I mean, you just don't know. But yeah, it's always such a good experience to sit down and chat property. And yeah, sometimes we chat other things as well, but it's about just making those connections and getting to know those people. And I've got people now that I met in some of the earlier coffee mornings who I'd call friends now because I've known them that long. And it's just brilliant having your own tribe.
It's an important thing, isn't it? Because that was really important for you, having your own tribe.
Yeah, very important.
Yeah. Good. Now, is there so with having, the Brains Trust, as you call it, actually Dymphna calls it as well. She calls the community the Brains Trust as well. Reach out to the Brains Trust. It's kind of like a thing. I think we've all. I don't know. Did you start it? Were you starting calling the Brains Trust? I don't know. Anyway,
I don't know where it came from.
No? Okay, all right. Well, anyway, the Brains Trust. It's an interesting kind of concept for the community. Have you found a problem that you can't solve?
No. I've found problems that I've solved in ways that potentially weren't the way I'd like to solve them, but they've still been solved. I mean, I think one of the examples I shared with you was a JV, which was meant to be a Renault flip deal, regional. The market moved, we had problems on the deal, and essentially by the time we got to the point of selling it, the JV partner would have lost money. So, okay, that was one possibility. We could have done that. That would have solved the problem, but you never like to lose money. But being regional, and because of what we've done with the house and everything, it was actually possible for him to hold it and get positive cash flow from it. So he's done that. And now that the regional market's moved so much, he could actually sell it at a profit now. He hasn't. He's kept the cash flow because it's a nice little profit source for him. But that was an example of a problem I couldn't solve, in that I couldn't make the house sell for more than it was going to sell for. But I still solved it by coming up with plan B. And to be fair, one of the reasons we'd chosen regional in the first place was because I'd always said, as an absolute fallback, you could still keep the house and get positive return from it. So not really expecting those words to come true, but they did. So, but that's the closest I've come to a problem. As I said, I solved it, but not in the way that made everybody happy. I know his wife wasn't happy. I think she'd already spent the lump sum she thought she was getting from selling it. But sometimes you just have to go with what's going to work, or what's the best solution out of not so great solutions. They can't all be perfect. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Felicity, could you give us a bit of an idea? I mean, because you're working with a lot of other people, how do you approach a JV? And obviously, there's two components to it. It will be the deal, and it will be the partner. Yeah. Can you explain a little bit about how you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I know some people find the deal first and then go find the partners. And to be fair, the 5.4 million one sort of was a little bit like that, because I did take on the deal without actually having the money partner lined up. As it turns out, the money partner is somebody I know and who trusts me, and I trust them. So that worked. But prior to that, I tended to go with getting to know people first. Certainly Steve and I had met numerous times for coffees, and really got a sense of who we were as people. Because I mean, you can do JVs with almost anybody, but the thing is, what are they going to be like if there's a problem? And that's one of the hardest things to try and work about somebody, because most JVs, if everything goes relatively smoothly, they'll be fine, but it's when the proverbial hits the fan that sometimes people show their true colors, and that can be really hard. So that's why I really like to know my JV partners. As I said, with Steve, we work from a point of, okay, we want to do a JV, let's find the deal. This current deal, I did find the deal first and then put the feelers out and said, hey, I need a money partner, and somebody I know has stepped up. So it's, to me, that relationship's important. I've heard someone refer to doing a JV on a property together as being like a marriage. And in a lot of ways it is. And that ability to keep talking to each other, even when things aren't going right. I mean, like the deal I mentioned before, the regional one, one of the highest accolades I could get was the JV partner saying to me at the sort of end of it all was, okay, maybe it didn't work out the way I thought, but he said, you know what, somewhere down the track, if I wanted to do another JV, I'd do a JV with you again. And I was like, wow, that's so awesome, because I felt like I'd failed him almost by not delivering what we originally hoped to deliver. But he was like, no, the JV process side of it was brilliant. Okay, other stuff happened, but, and I really liked that fact, and the fact that we still had that positive relationship. And I mean, I texted him a few times when I'd been looking into other things in that area going, hey, look, the prices have gone up to this. If you wanted to sell, so we've still kept that connection going. So I think that is and I know people do them with strangers and they all work out perfectly okay, but that's just never been my sort of strategy. I've tended to always end up with people I know. So,
Good. Yeah, good. Well, look,
and always have a good legal agreement.
Yeah. Good.
No, I told the money partner that yesterday because we're still just getting all the final bits of paperwork in place for this deal, and he made some joke about it, and I said, I don't care how well you know somebody or how much you love them or if they're family, friends, whatever, you still have paperwork. You never do anything without paperwork. And it's like insurance. You hope like hell you never have to actually like claim on your insurance, but you certainly want to have it. And I think paperwork's like that. You put it all in place, you grudge paying the money to the lawyers to do it, but if you need it down the track, you'll be so glad you did. So
that's a really good point, that it's like insurance. You never want to need it, but it's always, but then if it is there and you do need it, you've got it. Yeah. Great approach. Felicity, how is your life different now to before you joined the community? How have things changed for you?
Well, as I said, I had been a stay-at-home mum doing all my bits and pieces. I did, as part of my big change of turning 50, I did get a part-time job because I just wanted the security of knowing I had a certain amount there to pay stuff every week or every month. And that also helped settle down all that noise about how am I going to pay stuff. But at the time, I sort of set the goal in my head of I want to be earning all my income from property. And certainly in my head, that equated to profits from deals. But the weird part is that although, sure, there's been some money coming in from that direction, I've also now set up a business with Steve running people, renos or supervising renovations or subdivisions stuff for other investors. So obviously something comes in from that. I now have do some ad hoc sort of part-time work for a couple of people in property education space. So it's funny, I'm now already, and I actually left my job middle of last year because I didn't need it anymore. So I am actually earning all my income from property right now. So it's funny how if you put the goals out there, maybe I wasn't specific enough. I'd probably get wrapped over the knuckles by Dymphna for not being specific enough about my deal. But I'd had in my head that I wanted to be out of getting my income full-time from property before. I think I gave myself 5 years. And I'm doing that. So, hey, I'm really happy. And it's brilliant. I love having that flexibility. And it's funny, all these people now are all loving working from home. And I'm like, hey, I was already doing that. And I'm still doing it now, even though, people are starting to go back to offices and things in Victoria. But yeah, it's interesting how my journey has taken me on a different path to that I envisaged, but it's still basically the same goal is still coming true or has come true for me. It's just now I'm just going to make that goal bigger, Chuck me a few more 5.4 million deals and I'll be right.
Awesome. So, what would you tell, like if there's a student who's literally just joined up, got a whole lot of kind of ideals and enthusiasm to get started. What would you tell them? What should they do when they're just joined up?
Relax, take your time. I do get a lot of people turn up at coffee meetings who are like, oh my God, I've been in the program for a month and I haven't done a deal yet. What's wrong with me? And it's like, there's nothing wrong with you. It takes time. There's a lot of information in there. I personally think you've got to do the boot camp or watch old recordings of ones 2-3 times at least if you're new. I tell people, give yourselves 3 to 6 months minimum to absorb stuff and get it straight in your head and work out what suits you. Because one of the things I see a lot is this shiny object thing of, I like renos, but commercial sounds good. And a lot of new people do get stuck in that if they try to push too hard to get into deals too quickly. They haven't done enough learning to really understand what's going to work best for them. And that's why they end up in this endless loop of jumping from strategy to strategy. So just do the learning. I mean, there is so much information available to you. There's so many back recordings of things. There's Facebook groups where you can ask questions if you're confused. There's webinars and they're all there on the website. I mean, I swear, I say 3 to 6 months, but I'm sure it probably would take you more like a year or more to actually get through all the stuff that's available. And the more learning you do, the readier you will be to get into the right deal when the time comes, the best thing is don't rush it. Take the time, let it sink in, learn it, because that will pay off. And particularly learn the numbers side of it. Learn how to judge deal, because that's crucial. And I guess a little bit of being prepared to be flexible, because, again, any strategy works, but they don't work everywhere all the time. And sometimes, you think, I really want to do a 1 into 2 subdivision, but it might not work in your suburb. So be flexible enough to recognize that. And rather than pushing through with a strategy that's going to lose your money, look at it and say, okay, well, maybe I need to do a bit of grid variance and work out a better suburb or where it does work. That ability to be that little bit flexible. And the more you learn, the better able you are to be flexible and to recognize that. So, yeah.
Good points. Great points. Now, Felicity, I just want to let you know, Lisa said, fantastic journey, Felicity. There's a couple of comments there.
And also feel fantastic living it.
And on Facebook, we've got Felicity, love your authentic, down-to-earth attitude. Great story. That's from Helena.
Thank you.
And then Lou said, love it, Felicity. Coffee mornings, just do it.
Yes.
Awesome. And then Helena said, what about advice for the other way around? People who have been in for a while but lost their mojo.
Yeah, well, that comes back to, again, one of the primary things Dymphna talks about. And in fact, I had somebody on one of the Zoom coffees just the other day, was sort of coming back into it after a break. And she was looking at a deal, but it was obvious that she didn't know what she needed to achieve or why she was doing it. And I was saying to her, go back to the boot camps, go right to the sessions where Dymphna talks about your why, because you need to know your why. Because she's like, oh, is this a good deal? I'm going, well, that depends on what your why is. Why do is it, it does come up. And I think all you can do is redo the bits about your goals and your why. I've done that a number of times over the last 5 or 6 years, where I've had to really go back to that, because sometimes it's hard. I'm not motivated by material things like, flashy cars or big houses or all that. But I am motivated by helping other people. And sometimes it's a little difficult with it, because that's a little bit more of a nebulous why, but it's still a why. And so I've had to go back and really try and flesh that out and be more specific about ways that I want to help people. And I do have a couple of pet projects in the back of my head that, once I've grown my property empire a bit and my equity base, I do know what I want to do with that. So it all comes back to why. If was it the dreams big enough, the facts don't count, or something like that. If you want something enough, you'll go for it. But as I said, I think maybe that's probably the key if you've lost your motivation. And the other side of that is also getting around people in the community and just talking to them, because once you start talking to other people, that really fires you up. And watching some of the success stories and listening to other people's journeys. And because okay, you get your students in here who sort of come in the door and almost like take a flying leap, and next minute you know they're up on stage and they're in gazillions. But the vast majority of people, we tend to just plod along at our own pace. Life interferes sometimes, we have a break, but then we come back, and it's that persistence and just going, okay, I've lost my way a little bit. What's the problem? Why aren't I doing this? Why am I feeling like this? And most often I find it is reconnecting to the why. Just why do you want to do this? And being realistic about what you can achieve in what time frame. Again, I think a lot of people come in and do see the people who take off running and feel inadequate somehow when they look at them. And I think it's really important to recognize everybody's journey is different, and you need to take your journey at your own speed in your own direction.
Great insight. Yeah. On purpose. Be on purpose. With your why.
And be warned that if you come to coffee mornings, you may occasionally get a burst of tough love from me. So I don't do it very often, but every now and then I do. Yeah, sort of. Well, I told that particular person, go back to your why. Go back and do the boot camp bits about that, because that's what you've lost track of. You don't know why you're doing it, and you don't know what you're trying to achieve. So how can you achieve it if you don't know what you're after?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's why that peg in the sand is always there.
Yes.
Number one. Yep. Yeah. Good. Look, I think, is there anything else that you wanted to add? Because thank you for taking the time out. I think we're kind of like got a really fascinating insight and into what you've done. And we're kind of looking forward to seeing, what you get into as well further down the track. But
so am I. Oh dear, it's amazing. Once you open your mind to possibilities, it's like I've looked at a few things just in the last couple of weeks. I'm going, oh my God, I'm looking at like a 100 apartment complex thing, but it doesn't work up. Numbers don't stack. But I'm like, oh, I wouldn't even have looked at that even 2 months ago. And it's like, oh dear, once I've let the beast out of the cage.
Wow. Yeah. That's huge. And look, one other thing that I probably need to mention as well is we do have the Momentum Mastermind with Dymphna coming up tomorrow. So if you want a bit of a, kick in the pants, as you say, get back into it, especially if the New Year's resolutions haven't been kind of carried forward, jump into that one, which is coming up tomorrow as well. Yeah. Felicity, thank you so much.
No worries.
Thank you so much for for sharing and for having a chat. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, really enjoyable. Nemesis said, really well done, learned a lot from you. And where's the link from Momentum? Check out your emails. Nemesis, there will be an email that comes out, and also onto the Facebook group, and there will be also on the members only website. Okay, so just check out those. There'll be a link to join. It'll be first thing tomorrow. It's a full day. It's a full day from 9 until 5 tomorrow. That's the Momentum Mastermind event. So thank you. Very much appreciated. And for those of you in Melbourne, you can always catch up with Felicity at the coffee meetups. Yep. Now, we should mention as well, this is in the groups. All of that information, especially with local meetups, most of that you'll find in the local groups, which we have. So we have ILRE Real Estate groups in every major kind of state, generally in the main cities. And so if you are in Melbourne, you need to join the Melbourne group, and then you let everyone know about those coffee meetups in Melbourne, don't you?
Yeah, well, they're pretty consistent. I usually do the first Friday, 10:30, and then the third Sunday, 10:30 in the morning. So, okay. But I do still post events in there. Yes.
Excellent. And then others around, if you're involved in other areas and you can't get to the Melbourne one, you want to do one in Sydney and other areas, by all means, like Felicity mentioned, just do it. Just start it. Just get it going. So awesome. I think that's it. We're all done. What have we got here? Felicity, thank you so much. What a ride, hey? That's from Lisa. And Lisa is also, Lisa's in both, on Facebook and there. What location? Cafe. Lisa, jump into the Melbourne I Love Real Estate Facebook group and Felicity will mention exactly where it is.
Yeah,
and you can connect up. If you haven't already, it's the Melbourne ILRE Real Estate Facebook group, and you can get that under the community tab on the members only website.
Yep.
And I'm sure that in this comment on Facebook, we'll put in the link there too. Yeah.
Yep. Cool.
Okay, look, we're all done. Thank you so much once again. And thanks everyone for joining via Facebook and via Zoom. This is obviously going into the Facebook group. So anyone who wants to review it can go into the Facebook and you'll be able to review this one. We also edit them and put them up onto the members only website to look at later as well. Hope you have a fantastic Friday afternoon. And remember, we've got the Momentum Mastermind with Dymphna on tomorrow. So if you haven't already, make sure if you can make that time, it's going to be awesome. She's got some really good stuff happening tomorrow. There's going to be workshops in the afternoon. I'm not going to tell you any more. She's going to tell you more, but it's going to be pretty cool to get into. So that's what's happening up tomorrow. And then, of course, we've got the boot camp coming up in 19th, 20th and 21st of March. That's going to be in Sydney for the Sydney siders, and then via Zoom. We'll stream it in the hybrid version, which I think everyone, you're kind of getting pretty comfortable with as well. So you can watch it via streaming, or if you're in Sydney, you can attend. That's it from me. Thanks again, Felicity. Do well. Have a great afternoon on Friday, and yeah, we'll catch everyone around. Hey.
No worries. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Felicity. All right, see everyone. Bye.